I want to get into Bleacher Report. Now, obviously, both of these trades suck. Um, but I think the fans will like it because these are two players that I think a lot of fans like. And the first one is Miles Bridges. And I apologize, sir, because every time you're on here, somehow Isaiah Stewart is in a trade scenario, but this is the trade. Isaiah Stewart, Tim Hardaway, and the only draft pick that we'll probably have this year, Toronto's second, for Miles Bridges. So when you look at this trade overall, what do you think of it? And do you think a player like Miles Bridges may or may not be on Trajan in the Pistons radar?
I mean, this is no disrespect to whoever wrote the article, but at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of these trades are really just made with like a 2K machine. You know what I mean? Like it's like 2K Trade
Yeah.
Finder, and like okay, like all right, like we need to get something out today. Like let's get some trades going. Who could Detroit use? You know, and it turns into one of those types of things. Just because like if you look at how this, and I'm going to take away completely like who's or what is in the trade for Detroit. Um, if you look at Miles Bridges and you just simply place him onto this Pistons roster, what does he add that you don't really have? Because Miles Bridges, sure, in 2022 was a good target for the Detroit Pistons, but 2025 Miles Bridges is not nearly the same player he used to be. And it's unfortunate that he's seemingly kind of fallen off a bit, but at the same time, there is no world where Miles Bridges, on the court at least, is a good fit for the Detroit Pistons, not to mention, in terms of the off the court things. And I'm not even going to get into everything there, but just in terms of kind of how he is, I can't see him necessarily being the best fit with the locker room. So I don't see the clamoring for Miles Bridges, if there is any. Um, he's not had a good year in Charlotte, and I feel like he doesn't really provide much in terms of spacing. His shot diet not encouraging, and his
Mhm.
athleticism is nowhere near where it used to be. So it just seems to me like that'd be a really puzzling target for the Pistons to have in general. And then when you include like who they're trading is one, Tim Hardaway, who's an important part of their rotation, provides spacing and veteran leadership. Then you have Isaiah Stewart, who is one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. And this is a team that desperately needs rim protection. And also, in terms of culture, identity, like I've said it a million times, I mean, Troy Weaver said a lot of things, but it's really true. There's not a single person who embodies Detroit Pistons basketball more than Isaiah Stewart. I feel like he's one of those guys that like you just think about what a Detroit Piston like. You could take a Rick Mahorn and have him watch the Detroit Pistons, and obviously Rick watches the games, he does commentary. If he hadn't watched a Pistons game since he played, his favorite player on this team would be Isaiah Stewart. You know what I mean? Like he's just a
Mhm.
guy
Yeah.
that really fits the identity and soul of the team, and he provides so much in terms of defense. I think his offensive skill set's kind of been underutilized this year a little bit, in the role that he's had, and he's still maximized the role that he's had, but he's a stretch five, and he rarely takes 3-pointers or has the opportunity to take 3-pointers. But he does everything this team has ever asked of him and more. So trading away a guy like that for Miles Bridges, who not only off the court but also on the court is a questionable fit, would really be head scratching. Like, like would a Miles Bridges slow the development of a Ron Holland or an Asar Thompson? Because like when you think about especially Asar, like how you want to play Asar is, to me, I've always seen Asar offensively similar to a Bridges, or similar to an Aaron Gordon, in terms of like how you best optimize his skill set. And then you include their only second round pick that they have this year, and most likely their only draft selection they'll have, which luckily for them will be, pretty early on, basically like a late first. I really don't see the value of this trade at all.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, hey, go for it, Zay.
I mean, I don't think I'd trade either of these players straight up for Miles Bridges this year.
Mhm.
His efficiency has just taken an insane downhill turn. He doesn't jump like he used to. Like that was part of the enticing part of Miles Bridges, was like you could use him as like this little bit of a lob threat, put him in the dunker spot. this year, I don't know how much of those dunks he would come down with. Not to mention, if you trade Tim Hardaway for Miles Bridges straight up, you're losing shooting. Tim Hardaway has been almost at about a 40% clip on a lot of attempts a game this year. And I think he also does a lot of little things. Like this year, I think I saw a stat. I'm not sure if it was you or someone else, but Tim Hardaway's taken more charges this year than the entire Pistons team did all of last season. Like things like that, like you just can't. Miles Bridges isn't going to put his body on the line for this team. And then, I mean, same point goes for Isaiah Stewart, not to mention him being one of the most switchable bigs and having one of the best interior defensive presences, despite him being undersized. I do think Paul Reed having a bigger role would be beneficial to the team, but I don't think I would want it to come like that.
Yeah, I mean, nothing against Miles Bridges. I think a lot of people like him as a player because of the Michigan State ties, and they want to see homegrown talent play for the Pistons. I get it. But losing Isaiah Stewart, I think, would probably be a loss for the Detroit Pistons. And I don't think a trade like this would happen because the biggest reason why they traded Nick Richards is to let Mark Williams get more of those first center touches. And he's been an absolute heater, just having looks like freaking Andre Drummond type stats, having like 20 games and a couple of blocks. Like he's just been going crazy. I don't like this trade because you're losing your best rim protector, your best defender, arguably, in Stu. You're losing a veteran in Tim Hardaway Jr., which you like him as a player, you like the floor spacing, but I think off the court stuff that fans don't get to see. He's a really positive, uplifting person from what I've heard from other people, other reporters like yourself, Czar. Like, I think Tim Hardaway has just bought into what Trajan Langdon probably sold him when he traded for him, just like the culture that they're trying to rebuild in Detroit and trying to get this team being like more of a winning product. I don't really know how a fit would work with Cade and Jade Knight with Miles Bridges. Maybe he's your third option and you would still have to bias on this team. It would be really weird and clunky. Like someone would be an odd man out. I think it might be Ron Holland, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't think Miles Bridges is worth slowing down the development of Ron Holland, especially when you look at how much he's progressed so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, 3 years ago, sure. I mean, like athletically, he was like jumping out at the gym, and like he was probably LaMelo's like favorite lob threat. But I mean, like I've watched a couple of Charlotte games outside of like when they played the Pistons, and like bunch of like clunky, like mid-range, like settling just for like really bad contested jump shots, which I don't know if like, Father Time is catching up to him. I don't know if he's not in shape because it looks like he's gained a couple of pounds, but I mean, he's definitely not the same player.